Welcome to the Deep Dive. We cut through the noise of these staggering success stories to investigate the long, often brutal decades of disaster that usually come first. And right now, in 2025, the world sees one image of Nvidia, the absolute peak.
The victory lap.
Exactly. You see the glitz of CES, Jensen Huang in his leather jacket on a massive stage next to, a sleek humanoid robot.
And you see the valuation, $4 trillion, the most valuable company on Earth, the god of AI.
Right. And that image suggests this overnight triumph, a flash of genius.
But if you actually peel back that vertical stock chart, the story is, well, it's profoundly different. This is not a story about one single invention.
Yeah.
It's a 30-year history defined by the willingness to bet the entire company, to destroy your own margins, and to, actively endure financial pain for years, all for a future only you can see.
We're calling that strategic suffering.
Yeah, that's the perfect term for it.
And the core of this whole story is captured in this single snapshot from 1996. It's the CEO, Jensen, sitting alone in a dirty Denny's booth late at night, just exhausted.
Staring down the barrel.
Completely. He was, and this is the key, 30 days from total failure. He'd burned through all his venture capital on a technology that had just, poof, become obsolete.
So our mission today is to look at that pain, the humiliation, and the sheer conviction that let him turn that exact moment of desperation into a $4 trillion empire.
It's a great mission because the starting point wasn't a slow burn. It was an instant foundational mistake that almost killed him right out of the gate.
Let's unpack that. The technical mistake that led him right to that Denny's booth.
Okay, so the story starts in 1993. Jensen Huang, Chris Malachowski, Curtis Prime, they found the company with this revolutionary goal.
Right, they weren't just trying to build a slightly faster graphics card. They wanted a total graphics revolution.
To fundamentally change how computers render the 3D world.
And to get why they failed at first, you have to understand the basic math of 3D rendering back then. You look at the entire industry, Intel, Silicon Graphics, everybody. They were all focused on building 3D worlds using triangles, polygons.
So if you want to make a sphere, you stitch together a million tiny flat triangles.
Exactly. It works, but it's clumsy. It's computationally expensive.
And Jensen saw that.
Yeah.
He saw that clumsiness, and he thought the standard was just inefficient. So he made what really looked like the smart money move.
The elegant move.
He had his R&D team build their first chip, the NV1, entirely around something called quadratic texture mapping, so using curves.
Instead of 1,000 jagged lines to make a curve, the chip just draws the perfect curve. It was elegant, efficient, way ahead of its time.
An engineering masterpiece. Took 3 years, millions in VC money. They bet the entire company on it.
And then the asteroid hit.
The famous asteroid. The industry did not wait for their elegant solution.
Yeah.
Just as they're launching the NV1, Microsoft releases DirectX.
Which instantly became the universal standard for PC gaming, the operating system standard.
And here's the brutal part. DirectX was built entirely on triangles. It had zero support for their elegant curves.
So the NV1 was obsolete before it even shipped. The game studios, manufacturers, they all needed DirectX. Nvidia was, overnight, incompatible with its own market.
Revenue just went to zero. They call it being dead walking.
100 employees, all the venture capital gone, and a brilliant piece of hardware that was, functionally a paperweight.
Any business advisor would say, shut it down, it's over.
Absolutely. But this is where that conviction part of strategic suffering kicks in. Jensen had one last desperate shot.
A contract to develop the chip for the Sega Dreamcast console, worth about $7 million.
That was the only oxygen left in the room.
Yeah.
But here's the next layer of the suffering.
Yeah.
Jensen knew in his gut that their architecture was still fundamentally weak against what was coming, specifically the Sony PlayStation.
So even if they got the contract, selling Sega a chip he knew was inferior would give them cash, but it would kill their brand forever.
So he did the unthinkable. He flies to Tokyo, sits down with the CEO of Sega, Shoichiro Irimajiri, and he essentially tells them not to hire Nvidia.
Wait, hold on. He flew all that way, admitted his own company's failure, and told a client to go spend millions with a rival.
It sounds insane, right? But it was desperation, channeled as strategic honesty. He gained this immense trust by proving he cared more about Sega's success than his own paycheck.
Okay.
And that trust became the leverage. After telling him to use the competitor's chip, Jensen then asks for most of the money, about $5 million anyway.
For what? For a chip they weren't even going to build?
Exactly. He wasn't selling technology anymore. He was selling the survival of the team. He said,
Yeah.
We have the smartest engineers on Earth. Give us 6 months of runway. We will delete 3 years of failed work, pivot completely to DirectX, and come back with the best product imaginable.
And Uramajiri said yes.
Stunned by the honesty, he said yes. That $5 million bought them 6 months of life.
6 months. That's the clock they were fighting. So Jensen institutes this new, brutal philosophy in the company. Velocity.
Just speed.
All that elegant curve technology they loved.
Yeah.
Gone. Purged. They committed to embracing the triangle standard, and their only goal was to be the absolute fastest.
Working day and night, sleeping under their desks. It was that kind of pivot.
And that pivot led to the launch of the Riviere 128 in 1997.
And it wasn't the cheapest chip. It definitely still had bugs, but it was demonstrably faster than anything else. That one metric, speed, hit the market like a bomb.
Sold 1 million units in 4 months, propelled them to an IPO just 2 years later. They survived.
They survived their first near-death experience.
So they'd won the graphics card war, they're public, making good money from gamers. Most CEOs would stop there, right? You just battle for market share against 3DFX and ATI.
But Jensen wasn't satisfied. He saw this sea of sameness forming. He realized true dominance meant inventing a whole new playing field.
And that's where the next strategic phase begins. In 1999, with the launch of the GeForce 256, they stopped calling their product a video card.
And started calling it the GPU, the graphics processing unit.
And they didn't just invent a catchy name. They invented a very specific technical definition for it.
Yes. A single-chip processor with integrated transform, lighting, and rendering.
Okay, that's a bit jargony. What did that definition actually do?
It was pure strategic brilliance. The keywords are transform and lighting. Before the GeForce 256, the main computer brain, the CPU, had to do all that heavy lifting.
Calculating where objects move and how light hits them?
Right. A huge bottleneck. By defining the GPU as the chip that takes over those calculations, they instantly frame their product not as an accessory, but as an indispensable equal engine in the computer.
So, by inventing the word GPU and creating a definition only they could meet, every competitor still calling themselves a 3D accelerator suddenly looked obsolete.
That's it. They went from being a nice-to-have accessory to a required, powerful brain for anything visual.
But that victory immediately led them into the most grueling chapter of all, the billion-dollar desert.
Yeah, let's jump to 2006.
Okay, so 2006, Nvidia is flush with cash from gaming. The stock's strong. They're in what you'd call the golden cage.
But Jensen saw the GPU's potential being wasted on just games. He looked at that parallel architecture, all those tiny calculations happening at once, and realized the GPU was really just a massive math engine.
It could simulate oil reservoirs, model proteins, predict the weather.
He got bored with the golden cage of gaming profits, so he made the most controversial and expensive bet of his career. He launched CUD.
Compute Unified Device Architecture.
And CDA wasn't a chip, right? It was a software layer, a vast programming platform.
It was like the Rosetta Stone for this kind of computing. Before CUD, if a scientist wanted to use a GPU for, say, weather modeling, they had to program the chip directly. It was incredibly difficult.
Only a handful of experts on the planet could do it. CUA was designed to democratize the supercomputer. It let any student or researcher use simple languages like C++ to program the GPU for, well, anything.
Which sounds great for humanity, but a massive short-term cost. Gamers didn't care about protein folding.
And scientists didn't trust a gaming company's software, so CDA revenue was zero. And it stayed zero for years.
But the cost to develop that ecosystem, the tools, the libraries, was billions.
And this leads directly into the period of greatest suffering. The analysts' hate during this era, I mean, especially around the 2008 financial crisis, was just brutal.
We have the earnings calls. Wall Street was actively attacking this strategy.
They were ruthless. Analysts called CU dead capital, a vanity project. They said Nvidia was destroying its gross margins by pouring billions into this niche academic market with no return.
They were screaming at them, cut spending, stick to gaming.
And then the double tap. The 2008 crisis hits, plus Wall Street is punishing their vision. The stock lost 80% of its value. It dropped all the way down to $6 a share.
In that situation, any other CEO slashes R&D. You have to signal sobriety to investors.
And Jensen did the exact opposite. He cut his own salary, sure, but he held the R&D budget firm. He told everyone, this is the future. We are not stopping this.
That's what you call CapEx conviction.
Capital expenditure conviction. The ability to spend billions on a future that provides zero return for a decade, betting that you can see something no one else can.
And the quiet payoff wasn't happening on Wall Street. It was happening in university basements.
Exactly. While the analysts were screaming, poor grad students who couldn't afford a $1 million supercomputer realized they could buy a $200 Nvidia gaming card.
And use that useless CUDA software to get supercomputing power. The seeds are being planted for the biggest tech shift in a generation.
And the silence broke suddenly. 2012. This was the big bang for AI.
A team in Toronto, led by Alex they use Nvidia GPUs and CUDA to train a network called AlexNet.
And for the first time, a computer could reliably see. It could classify an image, tell a cat from a dog with like 98% confidence. Deep learning was born.
And that was the moment. The world's biggest companies realized this new hungry AI couldn't run on traditional Intel chips. They were too linear.
You needed massive parallel computation. You had to use CUDA, the platform that had been hemorrhaging money for 6 years.
The trap was sprung.
That useless software became the most valuable strategic moat on Earth. Intel was 20 years too late because they didn't have that decade of code.
The suffering paid off. Vertically.
And the symbolic moment, the delivery, came in 2016. Jensen hand delivers the world's first dedicated AI supercomputer, the DGX-1.
To OpenAI in San Francisco. And he signs the box to the future of computing.
So when you look at that stock chart today, you see overnight success. But what you're really seeing is the massive payoff for 10 years spent in the desert.
Which brings us back to today, CES 2025. Jensen is already making the next enormous bet because he knows this wave will eventually crest. He's focused on physical AI.
The humanoid robot, the industrial future.
And the new frontier is this Cosmos Foundation model. How is that different from something like ChatGPT?
It's completely different. ChatGPT deals with language, which is the digital world. The Cosmos model is about physics.
Whoa.
It's about teaching a robot how not to fall over on an uneven floor, teaching a car how to drive in snow.
So not digital information, but mastering the chaotic, unpredictable physical world.
Precisely. And this bet requires entirely new levels of simulation and processing. He believes the next trillion-dollar wave is industrial, being the brain for everything that moves.
The strategic suffering never stops.
It never stops because the market is never finished.
So what does this whole story mean for you? I mean, Nvidia isn't just a corporate history. It's a lesson in strategic endurance. The difference between closing your doors in 30 days and building a $4 trillion empire isn't luck. It's the ability to endure the pain of being wrong or just misunderstood until the world finally catches up. That is strategic suffering.
And here's the final thought, and it goes right back to that Denny's booth. Even today, at the top of the world, Jensen Huang runs the company like they are 30 days from going out of business.
He maintains that fear.
He maintains it as a strategic necessity, because in this business, if you are not terrified enough to make the painful long-term bets, you are probably already dead.
That constant self-imposed fear is what drives the conviction.
It's everything.
So, which painful bets are you making right now that feel ridiculous, but might just define your next decade? Something to mull over. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.